Who has the burden of proof in a self-defense issue? In a case that involves self-defense being a defense to an actual crime, so we see self-defense used a lot in battery cases, cases involving domestic violence, situations where it's generally one-on-one combat. A lot of times you'll see it as well. Hey, someone's attacking me with a knife, so I throw a punch, I land a right hook. You see self-defense cases a lot of times when it involves hand-to-hand combat. So in order to prove a self-defense case, there needs to be three elements. One, you have to be at a place you're allowed to be. Two, it has to be both objectively and subjectively reasonable. So is it reasonable to you in order to act with that type of force? And it would be reasonable to somebody else as well, looking in, an outsider looking in. And number three, you can't use force in excess of the force that is being used against you. So for example, if someone's charging at me, trying to throw a punch, I can't then pull out a gun and shoot that person. That's excessive force. But once self-defense is raised by a defendant, the burden of the actual case shifts to the state. So as a defense attorney, if the elements of self-defense fit that particular case, and we were raised that at a jury trial or a bench trial, it then shifts to the state to disprove one of the elements of self-defense. So the state would have to disprove, in other words, they'd have to say, hey, one of the three elements of self-defense does not apply here. He didn't have a right to be here. He did not act, or she did not act, subjectively reasonable, objectively reasonable. Or, you know what, the force that they use, sure, maybe self-defense would apply, but come on. He came with a right hook, left hook, stab, that's a little bit excessive. You can't meet force or normal force with deadly force. The only time you can use deadly force is if it's being imposed upon you, or you believe that it's going to be used against you. So the state itself has to then disprove one of the elements of self-defense. At the Marc Lopez Law Firm, we love self-defense cases because it allows us to kind of explain a case or kind of tell our side of the story when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're charged with a battery offense, whether it be regular battery, aggravated batteries, anything involving domestic, and self-defense is a legitimate option, give us a call. We can talk self-defense all day long. 317-632-3642. Remember, always plead the fifth.